Theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Rong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Rong.
Hi, Warren. So lovely to be back.
How was your holiday?
I feel like I ate my way through the island. I don't think there's any food left in Singapore.
What was the hawker markets? Were you eating there?
I went everywhere. I went to the markets. I went to the really high-end places. I had the best time.
Oh, you sound really refreshed.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Now, today we are talking about red, white and royal blue. What did you think of it, Suzy?
Let me talk about it. Alex is the US president's son and Henry is an English prince. In the romantic movie Red, White and Royal Blue, now streaming on Amazon Prime Video, the two young men fall in love in a big gay fantasy that is every bit as cheesy as it sounds. Not to say that it's completely stupid. In fact, the film is often thoughtful in how it chooses to portray the difficulties faced by queer people when we meet the loves of our lives. Our family structures have always been made to only accommodate straight monogamous relationships, and any deviation from those strict parameters always seems to be a challenge, not only for those directly involved, but also for those near and dear to us. Alex and Henry have families who have careers and literal empires to worry about, all of which seem entrenched in ancient customs and obligations. So it's a relief to experience some depth in Red, White and Royal Blue, but I must stress that the film is made for younger audiences, and although it is not in any way patronizing, some of us older folks and those of us who don't tolerate too much sweetness might still consider it a little bit too corny. In general, though, I think it does have a nice balance of delivering the romance and providing something that has some genuine resonance, especially for those of us in the LGBTQIA+ community. It deals with shame and acceptance quite beautifully, and we all know we can never get enough of that. The performances are strong, although I'm curious to know if people agree with me that one of the leads is much more appealing than the other. Uma Thurman plays the president and lights up the screen like she always does, with her blonde, statuesque figure never failing to impress. Warren, was there enough sex in the film for you?
I knew you'd ask that. Do you know what? It's really interesting because if you told me about the movie Red, White and Royal Blue, I would have probably rolled my eyes and gone, I don't think I'm going to enjoy it. Suzy, I thought it was amazing. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I found it was a mix of fiction. There were emotions. I found myself crying several times throughout it. And then I found myself laughing and just unexpectedly. I think who was the press secretary? I thought she was great. She was so funny. Her facial expressions.
Yeah, I think she stole the show, didn't she?
Oh, she was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I thought, if you look at the prince, there's different scenes where, for example, he doesn't want to hold hands and says, not here, it's too, I don't want to be seen. And I thought, well, it's interesting because as we're watching it, we're thinking, it's the royal family and the president's son we're talking about and the rigid royal family that's stuck in their traditions. And I was thinking when I saw that particular scene, I thought, no, it doesn't matter that they're so public and the royal family. We all feel the same. We've all had that time in our lives where we've had to hide ourselves, and we can't hold our partner's hand. We say, no, don't do it here. And it was actually really nice to say, you know what, even though they're the royal family, they're experiencing the same feelings that we all feel as ordinary people.
Yeah.
When we can't show.
Yeah, I think we can sort of relate to that. We can relate to those restrictions and those challenges that they're facing because it happens to us, not on such a grand scale, obviously, but we do have a lot of these concerns that other people don't have. And as we grow up, we are never kind of really taught how to deal with these things. Nobody tells us, oh, right. When you do meet someone that you like and you do start dating them and things get a bit serious, what are you going to do with their family? And often that's a big part of the equation, especially coming from an Asian background. Like if I'm dating someone from an Asian background, it is a very big concern.
Really? So
Yeah, because our families get really entangled, you know. Like I think white people tend to be much more independent, and you know, like when you are grown up, you move out of the home usually quite early. Maybe not these days with property issues, but. You know, there's this independence that white people have that other people don't have. We are much more entangled with our families. There's a lot of like, this kind of notion that your family needs to have a level of approval, especially your parents over the person you date. So, being queer people, whether I'm trans or if you're gay and you're meeting, Asian parents, I think that there is a level of, kind of awkwardness or difficulty that you might not experience if you're dating white people.
That's quite interesting. I'm thinking of the, you know, a couple of Asian partners I've had, and one family absolutely loved me and I got along really well, but the other, you're right, I was hidden. I was not known about and never spoken about. And I don't know what it would have been like had I been. I think they expected him to you know, go out with a nice Asian girlfriend.
Yeah, the likelihood of your Asian partner or, you know, some other, you know, like brown skin, black skin partner, the likelihood of them being out is, you know, it's less. The chances are they are probably in the closet. In my case, you know, especially if you're someone who's dating a trans woman, the chances are nobody knows that you might date a trans person. So there's this whole thing, not just revealing that, oh, this person you're dating is trans, but also like, what does that say about your own identity? And then what does it say about our family? What does it say about, our lineage, you know, which is always a concern, and which you know relates to this whole royalty blue blood stuff.
Exactly. I like the way we're talking about Red, White and Royal Blue, the movie, with Suzy Wrong, who's back from holidays. We missed you, Suzy. I like the way it also deals with the, you know, the right to come out when you want to. And yes, you know, there's more at stake for the president's son and the royal family, but still, again, it came back to this thing for me. It was like, I can relate to something. You know, watching this film, I can relate to something that the royal family's going through. Yes, it's fictional, but it was something, you know, we should come out when we want to, not when we are forced to come out. Were you forced to come out?
I kind of was forced to come out because of national service in Singapore. I don't know if it still happens these days, but back in the day, before you got in, you have this sort of series of, sort of health physical test days, and then there'll be a station in the tests where you kind of have to answer psychological questions, and you know, back in our day, you know, if you were homosexual, it was considered sort of a mental impairment. So they did ask, and I had by then been a little bit politically radicalized by the Americans, and I thought I will not hide myself. And when the question came, I said, yes, I was homosexual, as I was at the time. And I didn't quite think through the repercussions, and and they then required me to bring a parent in, and I was forced to come out to one of my parents, which was a blessing in disguise, but obviously a very challenging time.
Suzy, thank you for sharing that story.
Spinderella cut it up one time.
Now, let's talk about sex.
Let's do it.
Are you ready? Let's move on to the sex in the show. There's been a lot of commentary about Red, White and Royal Blue saying, oh, it's great. It's the first time intimacy has been seen on the screen on a mainstream film. And we chatted about it here on last week on Joy Drive. You can check out the podcast if you want. And I thought, oh, surely we've seen this before. But I've got to admit, when I was watching the movie, I was really impressed with the sex. It wasn't, I mean, for me as a gay man, and, you know, if there's kids in the car, you can turn this bit down, but for me as a gay man, there's two types of sex. There's the functional, mechanical, and then there's the intimate connection one. And often on the screen, in the movies, on TV, we just see the mechanical one. Okay, if you think of Brokeback Mountain, for example, this one focused on, well, what I consider that other type, that real connection and intimacy and that love. And I thought it was great to see that on the screen because, you know, we don't all just do the mechanical stuff. Some of us love the intimate stuff as well. What do you reckon, Suzy?
Yeah, they made it a point to say that, oh, this is sort of sex and then this is making love, didn't they? There was a scene about making love.
I love that term, making love. I use it all the time.
Yeah, and I was surprised that because the film started quite young in tone, and I felt like, yeah, this is clearly for audiences younger than myself. And then when the sex started, I was surprised at how vigorous it was. Like, it wasn't explicit. Like, you don't see anything really rude, but you kind of don't get you kind of don't cut away to candles or anything. Like,
no, his eyes light up.
Yeah. And then you get some sort of vigorous action, which is great. I think even then I still consider it, young audiences really, like teenagers would be quite comfortable watching that. Maybe they might giggle a bit, but that's healthy. It's healthy to see that, gay people do have sex, and then it does look a little bit different from heterosexual sex. I think it's sort of good to train our eyes, good to see it a little bit. But the film still feels very wholesome, I think, which I guess which meant that it struck a nice balance.
I agree with you. I must admit, Stephen Fry was a nice surprise as the king.
All right. And now you are spoiling it for everyone. He doesn't appear until like the last 20 minutes.
You're right. Sorry. Spoiler alert in retrospect.
Yeah, so he plays the straight grandfather who's the King of England. So that was a nice bit of texture there.
Suzy, Rob says, hi Warren, I enjoyed Red, White and Royal Blue. Thought it was a bit of a fun movie. Nothing too serious. Partner says book was much better, as is the case with a lot of movies. So I haven't read the book. Have you read the book?
No, I haven't. I did a bit of research. I found that I discovered that it was written by a non-binary queer writer. So that's it's a great thing. Because sometimes the romance, it feels like it comes from a straight woman place. But definitely in this one, there is a definite queer sensibility that runs throughout it, which I think makes it elevated, sets it apart from the rest. So even though I don't think the film feels terribly original, but it does feel a little bit unusual, and for someone like myself who's very into queer culture, it sort of does have merits, and I would encourage people to see it.
Kieran from Hawthorne says Red, White and Royal Blue was fabulous, camp cheese, but I loved it. And another one, Paul from Fitzroy says, on Red, White and Royal Blue, who did you think was hotter? Suzy, who do you reckon?
Well, I think Alex is hotter, and I also think he's a much better actor. Like, Henry worked very hard, and he was good at what he was doing, but I just never quite believed him as the English prince. I don't really know why. Because, like, he brought a lot of the emotion and a lot of stuff that was hard to do, and he did it. But I just found Alex was just so much more convincing. What about you?
I think, I agree. Alex was much more convincing. At first, when I saw Alex, I thought, oh no, he's going to be the the superficial one, but I really liked him. I liked his character and I liked his acting. Got another one here saying it was weird for me as a queer older woman. It felt Disney twee, a bit of heavy virtue signalling, and then the surprise knees up bottom sex. Informative. That's right. And there was an article in one of the papers saying gay guys can do missionary too. And it's true. We broke the myth here on Joy Drive last week.
The film has got merits. And I also enjoyed kind of imagining, like, if it happened in real life. So I was imagining when Prince George, I think his name is Prince George, isn't he? Like Will's first son. I imagine, like, if Prince George grows up and maybe he's going to fall in love with a man. Maybe. And what's going to happen then, Yeah, what was going to happen? Well, they could still have babies, obviously. Gay people have babies all the time. But maybe there'll be some rules that have to change.
Maybe, and I think that was important because it made me think also about how rigid the royal family is. I know it's not the real royal family, but I'm sure something similar could go on, and it just reinforced for me. And sorry if I offend the monarchists, but it just reinforced why I think the sooner we become a republic, the better. But that's my opinion.
Yeah. I agree with you, but I think also we need to concede that they are evolving very slowly, but they are evolving, and sometimes it is almost like things like this. Like I said, if Prince George happens to be gay and marries a man, then it will sort of kick things into shape. Like it will make changes suddenly and quite quickly. It's like they have to be forced into these changes, and I believe they have changed through the years. Obviously not quite quickly enough for you and I, but
no.
It is what it is.
And of course, it is what it is. And it's also, that whole British Empire thing and what they, their laws that they brought to all the countries that they colonised. And, I suppose what it did to us as queer people. And, I did, as much as I was watching the film and laughing and crying at scenes and took it as a bit of a light-hearted bit of entertainment, it did make me think about it. And I thought, you know what? But that's my view. We've got another message in saying...
I think you're right. Like if you are really against the monarchy, it is a hurdle to enjoy the film, and I don't think I really got over the hurdle sufficiently to enjoy the film.
Exactly. Another message in saying the Mexican guy, he was fit, and I'm a queer woman. There you go. So it seems to be, Alex seems to be the winner.
That's the highest praise.
It is, isn't it? It's a real compliment. Suzy, it is. It's great to have you back. The film is Red, White and Royal Blue. You can catch it streaming now, I think, on Amazon. Suzy, have we got homework for next week?
Next week, we are traveling all the way to Taiwan via Netflix in the curiously titled movie Marry My Dead Body, a supernatural comedy involving the ancient Chinese custom of betrothing a living wife to a deceased man. I'm sure this has piqued your interest, so let's talk about it when I see you next Tuesday.
Thanks, Suzy. See you then. Marry My Dead Body on Netflix.
Joy Drive. Smart Fun Radio.